And guess what? We have a quorum now because Scott Hopkinson is joining us. So yes, we do have a quorum.
Good.
How about that? Excellent. Okay. All right, folks.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, you're now calling us to order. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm now calling this meeting to order again for the PEG Access Advisory Committee. Carlin Reed is the chair. Let's do a quick roll call for the members to show that we have a quorum. Carlin Reed is here. Ruth Lauer.
Here.
Vince Carlson.
Here.
And Scott Hopkinson.
Here.
And Court Booth is joining us. I think he's connecting to audio. So, Court, are you here as well?
I'm halfway here for purposes of quorum.
We have a quorum without you, so don't worry about that. But appreciate you logging in and watching what you can. Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, sounds good. We're going to be taking one of the items on our agenda today a little bit out of order. The things we're going to be talking about today, just in general, we're going to take a look at the minutes and vote on the April 1 minutes. Talk briefly about the next meeting. We have a special presentation by Gail Heyer, the sponsor of Article 41. And thank you, Court. And we're going to be talking briefly about the MMN update and then do the PEG Access Program Awards. I don't think we're going to be getting to the charge revisions today. We'll put that off to the next meeting. But we do have a couple things going on. I want to look at Article 41 first, because Gail Heyer, the sponsor, has graciously agreed to join us. And I have a couple other special guests here as well who will join in our discussion. Mark Howell is here, and Louise Berliner is also here as well. To talk about Article 41. She's the sponsor of this article, and I wanted her to take a few minutes to say hello and talk about it. And then we've got some questions. But before we do that, I want to show you one thing. I'm going to do a screen share of a document that I pulled up because of this particular meeting. And I think this is why you wanted to propose the article. All right, hold on. Let me get this going here. All right, let's see where.
While you're doing this, is that a document you will be able to share with us?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
it's all what it is. It's a picture.
Okay.
And it's a picture taken from the town's broadband availability. All right, there it is. That's a picture that I snapped of where broadband's available along Old Bedford Road, but not available along Phillip Farm Road, Kenny Lane, or Virginia Road. Okay, the red dots mean it's not available. The green Ys mean it is. Now, there's a lot of discussion going on right now at two committee meetings, the Natural Resources Commission and the Planning Board, about this little piece right here. That's where the Concord Children's Center is proposing to build their new facility. You see, it does have broadband connection through the town's broadband, but the next door neighbors don't. So to me, this is one example of why Article 41 should succeed. That's my personal opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee, but that's my personal opinion. And Gail, this is why I'm glad you're bringing the article right now. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And Gail, welcome.
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
Yes, yeah, I think, you know, I am a CMLP or Concord Light Broadband customer, and I really like it. And I do think it's...
Quick question, Gail.
Yes, of course.
Can you give us your last name?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. So my name is Gail Heyer.
H-I-R-E?
H-I-R-E. I live on
Okay.
Nancy Road. I've been in Concord for almost 10 years, 9 years, I guess. I have a child at the elementary school, in the elementary schools.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure we could try and reach out to you, because I am, as you will find out, Mark and I have a deep interest in this particular subject. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm an environmental attorney by practice. I work part-time, mom hours. I spend a lot of time with my family. And I just think it's a great resource, but it's not fairly available. And just, to hear people say they really want it and they can't get it. And my experience and my view, somewhat educated, I think, is that the town is not very motivated right now to complete the build out. I mean, they got into 95% of the streets in town, but then getting it from the street and into people's homes and getting it to those last 5% of the streets, I don't see a lot of motivation for that. And I think now is the time to do it. People are at home, they want internet access. And that's basically why I brought the article, and I felt that it was something that we should urge the town manager to do, because I was told that the town manager is really managing the telecommunications. You know, he hires the telecom director and he appoints the CMLP. So that's where I came from when when this idea came to me. And as Carla noted, it was really from thinking about the people who are in places that don't have this access. And I think more of us should.
Yeah, so I don't know if Mark wants to go first or if I should go first. I am one of the committee members, but it might be useful to give you some background. Mark was the CIO at the time the broadband plan was put in place, and Mark and I worked together to write the business plan. I was actually retained by the town to do this as part of this effort back in the beginning. So he and I, and I'm sure he will want to add a great number of insights because he ran it. I only helped jumpstart it and then stepped away back to my work in the networking world. You know, this one thing that's probably important for you to know, just anecdotally about all this is built on the back of the fiber infrastructure that was put in place for smart grid. So there was actually a provision that the town broadband has to be operated separate from the utility and has to pay rent, if you will, for the infrastructure for the fiber plant that goes around the town, whose primary purpose is, again, for the smart grid and also is used for controlling of the streetlights. If you drive around and look at the streetlights, you'll see that a lot of them have little Wi-Fi antennas sticking out of the back of them. Most people don't realize that our streetlights are all on a big wireless grid as well. So it's interesting that I actually joined this committee when I thought Carlin was going to be, the focus of this committee was going to be around broadband. And then I decided to stay involved, even though it wasn't involved in broadband. But yeah, so that it is an interesting subject. There are actually a lot of people that have showed up at this committee meeting asking for changes around this, particularly in the area of what's that community over in West Concord off 62? Concord Green.
Yes. Yeah.
And Concord Muse both have had issues. Kais Road also have had issues from accessibility perspective, in that each one of those places, again, I know Mark will have some additional detail here, but each one of those places had to be a jumping off into some private infrastructure that was difficult to manage. And so the business side of it generally we had to focus on those things where we could, where the broadband could get deployed and pay for itself, rather than without having a lot of exceptions. So anyway, I'll shut up now. Maybe Mark wants to talk a little bit about this, but thank you for joining to talk to us.
Okay, Mark, briefly, would you also give your name and address for the record? Thanks.
Sure. I'm Mark Howell, 668 Nurse Neck Hill Road. And as Scott mentioned, I'm the former CIO and manager of the telecommunications network, and designed in the service side of it. The fiber had been contracted for construction for the smart grid actually prior to that. And I'll try not to be too repetitive of the comments that I made at the public hearing where you presented, Gail. I do think this is a good idea to address at this time. And to expand on that a little bit, I would point out that we did start fairly conservatively. We knew we had a base. We knew we had a pretty big hill to climb to learn how to own and operate this type of network. And there was, let's call it a lot of low-hanging fruit in 2014 when this was started. And so we took the approach of trying to deliver service in ways that was not going to be terribly expensive. The primary reason why there are areas that were not constructed at the initial construction time were the town's undergrounding bylaw, and the fact that there are areas like Phillip Farm Road that Carlin just pointed out, where the electric service was direct buried under the street. In other words, cables with no conduit, or possibly inside a conduit, but no extra conduit for communication services, which precluded adding fiber to those areas without going to the expense of essentially digging up the road and adding more conduit. And so, and that situation remains. The long-term promise was that when those roads were ready for refurbishment or rebuilding, that conduit would get installed, and eventually the service would get to everywhere, which is all, quite logical and significantly decrease the initial expense. But I think that now the question before the community is, 6 or 7 years down the road, the broadband service is a profitable subdivision of the light plant, and it's beginning to retain some earnings. What should we be doing with that as a community? And I'll just, without belaboring it, I will put in this idea. I think the reason why Article 41 is actually a very good idea is because the light plant is being asked to do a lot of things, especially in terms of sustainability right now. They have a big portfolio with the energy infrastructure, and this broadband network wouldn't have happened if it weren't for some, let's call it, vision and leadership, particularly the previous town manager, really asked me to take this on and make it happen at a time when the light plant quite likely would not have done this project at all if it had its druthers. It would have gone on and used it for meter reading and really not done that. And I think that this is a time in particular where the citizens of Concord need to express what we want as a citizenry and what values we're ready to put forward. So this system could go on operating the way it is. It would, generate some profit, but I think that in Concord we can do better than that. And so we need to decide exactly what are the values and goals, and put those goals in front of the light plant and insist that they be done. It's a particularly interesting time because the COVID relief funds and the infrastructure bill suggest that communities that are prepared and ready to move promptly could potentially get support for that. Now, is Concord the neediest community in the country in this area? Probably not, but that that hasn't stopped us before. So I'm happy to answer any questions that people want. So if there's other things, but I'll just stop there by making the point that I think that it's a good idea. I think that there's some kind of committee, some kind of essentially forcing of the agenda, at least in terms of goal setting, without being too overly prescriptive about what the light plant has to do, because there are, real reasons behind some of the things, and we could spend a ton of money trying to get service into very difficult areas for, let's call it limited community good.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
You're
Gail,
welcome.
I'm going to let you have the first chance to talk because you've heard some support from our committee. What do you think, Gail? And then after Gail, I'll go to any of the other committee members that want to chime in. Go ahead, Gail.
Yeah, no, I was aware of a lot of the background that Scott and Mark shared, but it's always good to hear it again. And I think I agree that this is a chance for the community to speak up, and Concord, it seems, loves to be a leader. They love to be revolutionary, and I don't think it's completely revolutionary to build a fiber network, but it's certainly a great idea. And I really think that now is the right time. So, and I encourage you all to keep up, talking about this later, and I can review the recording at another time and get some more ideas. I see Ruth has her question.
Ruth, go ahead.
Thank you. Those of you who have been around me a long time know that I'm a nitpicker. And so let me begin. I totally support the article in its sense of what you want to accomplish, maybe not the itty bitty detail, but I really like your explanation paragraph at the end of the article. But in the article, I'm concerned that you want us to provide service to the remaining 5% of town property. When we use that term, we're talking about town buildings. So service to the townhouse, service to the schools, service to, And I don't believe that's your meaning. I think your meaning is what you say in your paragraph, that we've already gone to 95% of the roads in Concord. We need to make it 100%.
That's
That's
right.
my
And that
meaning.
was actually sort of a typo, which Dave Wood corrected me on, but it was too late for the printing. I meant to say 95% of town streets. So I'll
Right.
probably introduce an amendment at the meeting for that. But yeah, so I mean, I think it should be built out on 100% of the streets, so that if you are on the street and you can get it from the street, just like you get your power.
And the second thing that I would like to say, and I don't know, I think this references more what Mark and Scott have said, that the original business plan talked about reaching the low-hanging fruit, the most coverage of the town. And those of us who live in multifamily housing didn't fit that business plan. And we have heard over the years that when the first build out was accomplished and they were ready to do an expansion or a second business plan, that people like Concord Green, Kais Road, Concord Muse would have some exposure to the possibility of that expansion. And I understand the East Concord problem that, and I think Mark's explanation was a helpful review, that you can't put fiber in a conduit that doesn't exist. And so when the roads are rebuilt, which hopefully we will have money soon, that's again low-hanging fruit. It becomes low-hanging fruit. But I don't think we should continue to by necessity avoid looking at multifamily homes.
Yeah,
Thank you,
so
Ruth.
I-
Hold on, Scott.
Yeah.
Hold on, Scott. Vince, you haven't had a chance to talk, and I know that Gail has just a few more minutes left with this. Vince, do you have any quick questions or comments for Gail? Otherwise, I'll go to Scott. Vince?
I heartily endorse that article. And, to repeat what Carlin said, I'm speaking just personally on this and, not for the committee. I think that there's some work that can be done between now and basically town meeting, or whenever, the select board has to kind of finalize the wording of the article. That can help a great deal. So, I see some people here, hopefully, that have some time to work on that. And that would be my, I think, single best recommendation going forward.
Good. Okay, thanks. Okay, Scott, you can wand it up. I know that Gail has to leave in about another minute and a half or whatever. Go ahead, Scott. Oh, Scott, now you're still on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, it's worth a follow-up, Gail, to talk a little bit about the realities of the business model that Mark and I dealt with. Just let me suffice it to say is that there's this cost, the amount of financing that was required to do the rollout was directly dependent on how fast the rollout occurred. So we originally authorized $1 million. I think there was a second authorization, $1 million, but that meant that we had one of the things we worked out with the detailed model was that the faster you rolled it out, the more money you had to upfront. And so we purposefully slow rolled it so that the liability and exposure for the town was limited. And that meant that, there really was limited advertising and limited, again, Mark can talk more to this, but that was by design. We've only recently gotten to the, as time has gone by, have we gotten to the point where we've gotten to the point where we can think about these moving on to the more complex approaches. The second quick comment is there are some technologies that might make things like Kais Road viable, and we should take that offline because it's a kind of a gateway problem. So.
Okay, Mark Howell has one quick question, and then David Allen. Do you have time to listen? Gail, can you put up this for a little bit longer? Gail?
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
just going to quickly mention that next Tuesday evening is the enterprise budget hearing, when the light plant will be talking about their budget. And so that's an opportunity to understand where their current plans are for the light plant. So that's important in terms of preparation. I would be happy to help work, to Ruth's point, to work on a preparation of a presentation for town meeting. To Ruth's point, you can definitely correct the wording in the actual motion that's submitted to town council. So that doesn't need to be something that's an amendment. That would certainly, the moderator would support that. So that would make the point. And beyond that, I think that, I'll stop there because I know we're short on time, but I have other comments we can go to when you're there. But I would definitely suggest next Tuesday night, and then some construction of a real presentation behind this that outlines goals.
Good, thank you, Mark. I note the enterprise budget is now available online on the town's website. David Allen, go ahead.
Let me take the opportunity to express my appreciation, particularly for this discussion that brings Mark and Scott in. I think it helps underline how important it is for this to move forward, and we not have 5% of the town who are in outer darkness. To get utterly practical about it, if anything's really going to happen, it's going to take money. And a discussion of this at light plant board meetings, at least most recent ones, the number of $10 million has come up. I'm not sure the number $20 million didn't come up. As Mark particularly can tell us in detail, the number when the whole thing was launched was $4 million. It's already been pointed out that it was felt that maybe that was—
I'm on my other call.
That, excuse me, somebody's not muted here. The original number was $4 million in some part because it seemed like that was a number that could actually fly and that town meeting would approve of. If we're going to go for 10 million or 20 million, we need to get real serious about how that's going to be brought about. Let's just say it out loud politically. But I think in practical terms here, what's indicated is to get down in detail about what the numbers are and when the money would be spent. I think it's quite unlikely to go forward until that happens. I don't think it's out of the question that the money could be approved, but just bear in mind that the original number was 4 million, and that was considered large, if not quite large. So if we go for 2.5 times that, or we see 20 million is, multiply that by 2, it's a very large number. In any event, let me encourage getting real and getting practical about what the numbers are and where it's going to go.
Thank you, David. I'm sure that would be part of the discussion. Gail, I understand you may need to leave, but I just want to let you know, I'm going to ask my committee to see if they're willing to consider voting to take a position to support Article 41 at town meeting. Now, I've heard from each one of you, and I'm sensing a consensus, at least, that you're in favor of this. Now, do you want us to present at town meeting in the form of a letter that will be submitted to the moderator supporting Article 41 on behalf of the committee? Do you want to make it to be a committee support?
I move that the committee support the article.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any other additional discussion from the committee members? If not, let's take a roll call. Carlin Reed votes yes. Ruth Lauer?
Yes.
Scott Hopkinson?
Yes.
Vince Carlson?
Yes.
And Court Booth, if you're able to participate? I think not. I think, yeah, I think that he's, let's mark him down as an abstention at this point. So is that a 4 vote, Ruth?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Then folks, that motion passes. Gail, you have the endorsement of the PEG Access Advisory Committee, thank you very much for your presentation. And I
Thank you,
encourage
Val.
you to go ahead and take offline, talk to Vince, talk to Scott, talk to Mark, talk to whoever you want to about this, but you'll get some assistance on this particular article. Okay,
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
sure. Good luck.
See you all later.
Thank you very much, Gail. Okay, folks, thank you very much. We're going to turn now to the rest of our agenda. The first thing, what I'd like to do at this point is to go back to the top. We're going to take a look at the minutes from April 1 that Ruth has so graciously prepared for us. And I'm going to ask to see if there are any amendments to the minutes from April 1. Any amendments or corrections? I'm seeing no edits. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Vince. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's do a roll call vote. Carlin Reed votes yes, approve. Ruth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vince Carlson, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Scott, how do you vote on the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, Court Booth, are you able to join us? No, he's abstaining. He's an abstention as well. Okay, so the minutes have been approved as presented. Thank you very much, Ruth. I will make sure that it gets passed on to the clerk for posting. Cool. We're zipping along here, getting stuff. Okay, just a brief note. The next meeting is June 3rd. It'll be from 1 o'clock to 2:30 in the afternoon. And we have special guest speakers from the Department of Telecom and Cable. We'll have an attorney and an analyst come join us. They will give us some overview on how the cable franchising process looks from the state perspective. They'll give us some hints on what to look for. I know that Carlisle is going through that process right now. And a person on this call, Nancy Pierce, has written several articles for the Carlisle Mosquito about Carlisle's franchising process. Well, we're going to be getting, and thank you very much for those, Nancy, they were very instructive. We're going to be also getting some information from the folks from the DTC, at least one of whom you've met before a couple of years ago. Michael Mail will be here. He's the analyst. They'll be talking about what's happening at the state level and perhaps what some other towns are getting or looking into issues for the cable franchising agreeing process. Again, our process for renewal starts about now. We are within a 36-month period now for Concord's franchise renewal that expires October of 2024. So the next meeting is June 3rd, starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, running to 2:30. Again, two brief reminders. Town meeting is June 13th and the enterprise hearing is May 11th, starting at 7 p.m. Okay, those are the calendar reminders. Let's see, Phil, are you available to do an update for MMN now, or do you want to hold off on that? What's your pleasure, Phil?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Be happy
wait, before you do, I got to show you something. This is really cool, but it has to do with what you're talking about. And what is it? Hold on.
Okay.
I know the suspense is killing you, isn't it?
Yes,
Because you
it
haven't
is.
seen this. You haven't seen this either. This is. Oh, come on! I've got to get this figured out how to do this right. Okay. Let's see. Get this. Do that. Put this over here. I've got too many screens going on here. Because I know if you start talking and you see this, you're going to say, what the heck is that thing? And yet it does relate to what we're talking about. I promise you this. Okay, now I can do a screen share, and now I can show you this, and now you can see that. Poof. Okay, so I went to Crosby's Designs in West Concord to check in with them about how to do a plaque. I talked to Bill Crosby, that's the gentleman here, and he said, oh yeah, I think I have their logo. And he pulled up these 3 metallic signs that say reserved for MMN staff. These are parking signs. Okay, now, how's that for a lead-in for your MMN discussion? Go.
Well, that's kind of neat. Wow.
In other words, they're ready for pickup. It's what he told me.
Oh,
So,
okay. Well, let me notice that one. Thank you. So yeah, let me just start off with a couple numbers, being that it always seems to be a topic that people are interested in. Of course, this is also based off of YouTube because that is where we can get those statistics and things. So in the past, since April 2nd to yesterday, the 5th of May, municipal meetings, we posted 52 municipal meetings. We've had obviously a lot because there's Patriots Day that was in there. We had 6 videos which we put up. which, by the way, in terms of viewership on YouTube, that was probably one of our busiest days there, because we had well over 1,500 people watching the different programs that we had put on. Most of those programs, of course, were things that may have been programs that had occurred in the past, like William Fowler giving a talk over at the Concord Free Public Library. But we were also able to incorporate, working with the celebrations committee, a video, getting people with their well wishes because they couldn't be at the parade this year. There was no parade this year. So that was kind of a fun project. We also were able to get the dawn salute and put that up a little bit later in the morning. We had thought about maybe trying to do it in live stream. We didn't have a lot of luck, but I believe the Concord Battery did live stream it. So, again, sometimes the connections just can be a little, squirrely in spots. Football, of course, Holocaust Memorial Day, Concord Days, and we had another Concord Carlisle High School music video which went up, which actually leads me into some really big news. The other Concord Carlisle High School video we did, You Raise Me Up, has been nominated for 3 Emmy Awards, 3 regional Emmy Awards. And this is the Emmy Awards for a couple topics. One would be the full music video received in the category for Best Arts and Entertainment Program. Another award nomination was in the area of cinematography for Best Photography Short Form. And then the third would be audio and sound category. And this is, obviously it was a combined effort with the folks over at the high school. So Deborah Smith and Owen Curtin, very involved in it. We also had some other cinematographers, a few, 2 of ours, Isabel and Mark Pauly, would fall into that cinematography category. So, we're really pretty excited about it. And just to kind of give you an idea of what we're up against, I'm just looking at some of the other things. So for example, Pops Goes Chronicle, that was one of the items that's also in the category. New Hampshire Chronicle has Wild Symphony. This is the Boston Ballet with Miko Neeson's Nutcracker. So this is what we're up against. So this is, pretty heavy hitting stuff. So to be nominated is quite an honor for us. And we will find out on June 26th. We're having a virtual award ceremony. That's a Saturday. I can get more information if you're interested. And we'll find out if we win. Couple other things now. Let's see now. Again, back to some numbers. We have some new subscribers, 54 subscribers. We have more viewership online. Again, it's continued to gone up, 8.3 thousand views in the past month. So again, lots of great things happening. We're of course now gearing up for May, as we move into May, June, for town meetings, both in Concord and Carlisle, and of course Concord Carlisle High School graduation. So we're going to have one busy weekend, the first weekend in June. So we're still keeping busy over here. That's kind of a quick nutshell of how things are going. But we're also, as the town is starting to talk about reopening, we're looking at making the studio available again. So programming from like the League of Women Voters, hopefully we'll see you folks back in the studio, and of course others as well. So that will be something that's coming up. Mark has been, again, working on creating some interesting studio arrangements. So you could actually have, maybe a host and a guest, and then a third guest, via Zoom, joining the conversation. So we're pretty excited. So yeah, that's our spring so far.
That sounds like a marvelous spring, and do be sure to give me a heads up on when the studio is available. I'll send out the information to the rest of the committee members. Absolutely. And I'm sure you will get folks lined up wanting to have access to the facilities. Marvelous. Right. Now I think let's ask questions for Phil. Ruth, do you have your hand up?
No, sorry.
Okay.
I'm enjoying it. I thought that Patriots Day was exemplary. I thought we were everywhere that we could possibly be, covering who Concord is. It was great.
Yeah, one of the fun things was, in between on the actual cable channel, in between shows and programs, we also had a bunch of trivia questions. The folks from the Concord Museum were kind enough to share with us. So yeah, we tried to make it as interesting. We had it on all three channels: the government, the education. We figured let's take a risk here, and just kind of block it out for the day on there. And I think it went over well. Thank you very much for your kind words.
Very good. Okay, Vince, you had your hand up. Go ahead, Vince.
Phil, I was wondering if your open position is still open, or whether it's being filled, or what the status is on that.
As far as I know, it's still in that status.
Vince, there's a reference to the education coordinator position in the PEG Access budget. That's part of the enterprise hearing coming up. It looks like it is still on plan. I'm sure that Phil will give us updates when he has a chance on timing and such, because we are interested in getting that moving forward, as everybody here well knows. Okay, additional questions for Phil from other committee members, and then I'm going to open up to the audience. Any of the committee members have questions for Phil about what he's talked about? Okay, any questions from anybody? Okay, Carol from, go ahead and give your name, and you're with Council on Aging, is that right, Carol?
Yes, Carol Cushing, Anson Road. I was just interested, you gave statistics, but were they just for the YouTube videos viewing, or is it for the channels themselves?
No, that's for YouTube. Unfortunately, getting the channel statistics, if they exist, I don't know how to get them. I know it's a complex thing. Again, it's like doing the Nielsen. YouTube does, there's built-in metrics
right.
that we're able to cull, but in terms of the actual viewership on TV, no.
Okay.
Okay, additional questions. Terry Ackerman, go ahead. Hi, Terry.
Hi, Terry Ackerman, 89 Heathbridge Road, on the select board, but speaking as an individual. Phil, that is really exciting about that Emmy Awards for that video. You raised me up. I missed the detail of that. Did you say it was done by high school students, or can you remind me?
Sure. Well, it's the choir. So basically it's the high school choir. So Debbie Smith was the high school choir director. But in terms of doing a lot of the production work, it was our staff. There was a gentleman, Joseph Marr, who I believe one of his sons goes to the school here. So he was very instrumental in being the producer of the project, coordinating when this is being filmed, again, Debbie, obviously worrying about the music side of things, but Isabel Germino and Mark Pauly were the principal videographers, and then also the post-production, editing the whole thing together. And there were a couple other videographers, I believe that Joseph Marr knew, who he invited them in to come in and assist as well. So it was, yes, it was a team effort, but the focus was the students as the performers.
And again, those were nominations, and the actual award ceremony is Saturday, June 26th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so stay tuned on that, Terry. We'll let you know what happens with that. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, additional questions for Phil about the studio, anything dealing with that? Okay, going once, twice. All right, Phil, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I will look forward to the next update. And again, a reminder, everybody, the enterprise budget hearing is on Tuesday at 7 p.m. The PEG budget is online. I've sent you some information. The budget, from my personal standpoint, is that it looks pretty much like what we saw in April. There was one change, and that was to increase the supplies and materials from $7,000 to $110,000. And I presume, Phil, maybe you actually can help us a little bit with that. The budget itself, do you know why the budget, the finalized budget that's posted, jumped dramatically in the amount that's being spent for supplies and materials? Maybe that's the capital plan, but I'm not sure. That'll be a question that I'll have for Tuesday, but I don't know if you know anything about it.
No, I do not.
Okay, well, take a look because the question is coming. All right. All right, let's move on then from the MMN studio update on to the next thing. And that's the PEG Access Program Awards. Now, this is...
Just a quick interruption. I have
Go
a
ahead.
absolutely hard stop at 11. So if there's anything that we need to vote on.
Okay, that'll be this next thing. We'll be done before then, I promise. That's the PEG Access Program Awards. And this is a creation kind of out of my brain, but with the committee support, recognizing the people who've done the videos during this COVID period from March, like I said, it was from March 13th of 2020 up until April 1st of 2021. I have circulated, I'm going to put on the screen here in just a moment, a picture that I've created, and it's purely my creation, subject to what you folks want to do, of a way of what the award plaque would look like. Again, we'd be doing an award plaque. I would be drafting up a press release, working with Aaron Stevens on it. We'd have some kind of presentation at some point. You know, here the PAC committee giving award to the studio manager, and on behalf of the committee saying, "You guys did a great job. Thank you very much." And what I had circulated with the packet on Tuesday was a picture of the award with names in it. So I'm going to pull that up now. What I'd like to do is to get some feedback on this. I'm just kind of creating something. If someone else wants to take over design of this, or if you have other names you want to add to this, or some other resequencing, feel free to take a look at that and let me know. Because what we're going to do is take a look at this plaque, talk about it, and at the end, I am going to ask for a vote on approving the plaque as we've designed it and going forward with getting the plaque actually created. So Phil, if you hate the way it looks, you got to tell me, because you're going to be looking at this thing every day. All right. Okay. So let me get that up here in just a second here. All right. There's that piece there. That goes there. This goes over here. And let's see, open that up there. That shrink that down so we can see what the whole thing looks like. Okay. That's about right. All right. Now, we're going to try and do a screen share. If I can figure out how to do it once again. Hey, okay, and here we go. And I think that's going to do it. Okay, that should do it. This is the draft that I've created. And what I was trying to do, I'm talking again to Billy Crosby of Crosby Designs. Ruth, thank you very much for that recommendation. He was extremely helpful. I got a great tour of the shop. Oh, that was hilarious. And I can see what he does. One thing we talked about, and I said, okay, give me for example. So he said, well, think about something 12 inches wide by 18 inches long. And I said, well, I like wood. That's what, so I came up and did a little mock-up of something. He already has the logo, for example, for the studio. I have a title of what this is for 2021, and I'll put down the names of the committee members down below, because we should get credit for doing this work. And then I'm going to increase this so you can see what the actual recognition says. Now, Ruth, tell me, is that legible, or shall I make that larger?
Oh, I think it can and should be larger, and I think one way to do it is to decrease the font size for the committee. I appreciate that the committee needs to be recognized, but I think that the bulk of our work there on this plaque is to recognize those entities, and increasing the font size could be helpful.
Okay, that's a good point.
The other thing that maybe you could do is the right-hand side have those have the words rag right instead of rag left.
Got it.
And that might also help give more size.
Okay, I'm going to have to work with Bill on actually how this design is going to work out, but what I need is a mock-up that gives you a rough idea of it.
He's going to give you some good work, I'm sure. I can't imagine the color changes in the center. You know, it's not going to be gold leaf or anything.
Yeah, it'll be what he can do. What I was trying to do is mimic the colors in the logo.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the maroon and the gold, which are also the colors of the high school as well.
I think
and
it's outstanding, and I like changing the notion from you know, a specific video to, because for the most part it wasn't the specific video, it was the community effort. So that, you know, the town of Concord and towns of Concord and Carlisle have so many meetings. It's hard to say, oh, this meeting of this committee on this date. That didn't work for me. My watching meetings till my eyes crossed, and I was not able to come up with, well, this meeting is more deserving than that meeting. But they were deserving of our attention because they tell the story. And I think the choices that you made are outstanding choices. I think we have support for all of those.
Good. I'm going to ask Ruth and I'll ask the others. Did I miss anybody or any organization that should be recognized? It's for the time period of March 13 to April 1.
Carlin, what Phil was mentioning earlier about the Emmy Awards, I think Joseph Marr should get stuck on there, and anybody else maybe that's really going to have a name somewhere in that June 26th ceremony, you know, that Phil may know of, you know, would also.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Phil, could you tell me the name of the gentleman again who was coordinating?
Marr?
Joseph Marr, yeah, M-A-A-R.
M-A-A-R?
Yes, M-A-A-R. In fact, let me just, yes, Joseph Joseph J-O-S-E-P-H, Marr, M-A-A-R.
Okay, so I would add his
And
name.
Phil, hopefully you'll have some more consequential plaques after June 26th.
Yeah.
Looks like we're going that way.
Yeah. On this one, Phil, would it be better for me to say CCHS choir - Joseph Marr, or just Joseph Marr, or what's an appropriate way of recognizing? Because it wasn't just him, it was a whole bunch of people.
Well, that's true, because you know, Debbie Smith and I can ask. I might be able to get you an answer this afternoon a little bit more, because it was, you know, if you include the high school. You know, does that start to, you know, bring that chain in as well, or is it just Debbie Smith and?
Realistically, I can add one, maybe two more names, and then the font really does get too small for this size of a plaque. We'll have to get a bigger plaque. Yeah. So I could add a couple at the most. So if you want me to revise something, great. For example, Concord Days is done by Tammy Rose and Richard Smith.
That is correct.
Do you want me to? Is it appropriate for me to have both the name as well as those two? Should I just combine them? Should I just put down Tammy Rose and Richard Smith? I don't know what's the better way of doing things. Anybody have a view on that for the committee? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to leave them up unless we need to save space. Okay. All right.
Would you, one more thing, Carla, yep. Would you consider moving Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee further up the list?
Sure. I mean, I can do.
Because we have the towns and then Minuteman, and I would think that the school committee should probably go before we start doing the community. But then on the other hand, is it the Concord Carlisle school committee or school district? Because we're not saying Board of Selectmen, Town of Concord.
Well, actually, they're two separate entities, aren't they? The school committee is one, and the regional school district is another. Okay, Court, are you happen?
Yeah,
what do you think? What's a good way of saying thank you?
I would be more comfortable with Concord and Concord Carlisle school districts.
Yeah.
Concord and Concord Carlisle schools, just Concord and Carlisle schools.
All
I
right,
like that. I like that.
good.
How about moving it up the page?
Sure. And where do you want it after?
Maybe after the towns or somewhere in the mix with the town departments. We
Yeah.
don't need preeminence. We can go below the Carlisle Council on Aging.
That
I
works
think-
for me
Okay.
because it's Concord Carlisle. So
Yeah.
we've done Concord, we've done Carlisle.
This
and
is
now
Concord.
Concord
Okay,
Carlisle.
perfect. I like that. Thank you very much. So
Yeah,
it'll
thank
be,
you,
it'll
Ruth.
be, it'll be before Minuteman. Go ahead, Court.
No, I was simply acknowledging Ruth. Thank you, Ruth, for
Yeah.
getting that clear.
Good.
Sure.
Okay. Who else am I missing? What else should be done? Okay, it's 10:52. Anybody else have any questions on this? All right.
Carlin, one other thing, I think maybe to make it a little bit more easy for Minuteman, you could probably put Minuteman NHP just to knock, give yourself a little space so it's not crowding over.
Does that?
No, disagree.
Well, then I hate to say this, then to be technical, historic should be historical park.
Yeah, I can
can
live
do
with
that.
that.
Yeah.
I can live with that. I know you used to work there, so I'll definitely recognize that. They did a lot of good programming. I want to recognize their efforts on that.
Minuteman, one word or two words?
2 words.
It's 2.
Okay.
It's 2. I checked on that one. Okay, any other last minute edits? Because I know Scott has to leave at 11 o'clock. All right, what I'd like now, thank you all very much. Appreciate that. You've given me an excellent template to go back to Crosby's design. I'm going to stop share now. Yes. And what I'd like to do is to get a motion from you folks, from someone, to authorize the chair to present the template and create a plaque recognizing contributions to public access TV. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Can I have, thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other discussion?
Just remind me on that plaque, was it prominent that it said the year? Because I imagine these are going to go up year by year by year on the wall.
That would be
Yes,
the
it did.
idea.
Okay.
The answer is yes. I will show you once again where it is.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. It's okay. That one and that. And what I do is at the top of this,
Perfect. Yeah. Okay.
that's what it is. Okay. So it says 2021.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, any other discussion? We're about ready to take a vote. All right, roll call vote to approve the motion. Carlin says yes. Ruth Lauer,
Yes.
Vince Carlson,
Yes.
Scott Hopkinson,
Yes.
Court Booth.
Yes.
Great. Sounds great. And it passes. Thank you all very much. Okay, that was the last vote thing that we needed to get done. I'm going to take that one down. And back to the agenda. It's about just a time check. It's 5 minutes to 11. The last thing we had on our list of things to do was talk about the PAC charge revisions, but I wanted to step back for just a moment because Vince, you had sent me some materials regarding Article 41, and I apologize, I blitzed right over it. Do you want me to present that to the committee and have a short discussion? It was on the McKinsey Connectivity Technologies.
Well, I'd like to revise that based on the, the vote that the committee has just taken. And, have it as a discussion piece, during whatever deliberation or conversations are, conducted here. And I don't know, I guess we should remind or mention to that the committee did take a vote. And I think Court was not present when that took place.
Right.
So,
Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull this up. We have time to look at this now. This is something that you presented to me just this morning, so we haven't had a chance to really thoroughly digest this, but I'm going to move it over here. Come on, you. And we'll put it up on the screen. We can talk about it. And I'm going to have you walk us through it so you can tell us what the heck this is, how to understand it, how to interpret it. Let me get it in a larger size first. Okay. Okay. And I think that's ready to go. Yep. All right, here we go. You Get over there. Okay. Okay, Vince, why don't you go ahead and let us know what this is? And I think I've got it kind of zoomed in a bit, so you should be able to read that. Ruth, are you able to see that? You're my check on this sort of thing.
I can see it, and I have no idea what annotated Article 41 210505.
Okay, Vince, the floor is yours.
Will you be able to send this around subsequently?
Yes, I will. I'll send that as well
Thank you.
too.
Yeah, so particularly for Scott and Mark, this is rather technical, but it is the full radio spectrum, that's being occupied by various services. So what we see up on top actually is what's happening now with satellite services. And this is, both the new Skynet service that's being offered, and also Amazon is also weighing in on their own service. So actually the SpaceX service, not the Skynet service, but that's actually already in operation. Now, these are primarily devoted to rural areas, but there's already people in Connecticut, for instance, that are in on the kind of the initial trials. So it's not immediately relevant to Article 41. It's more of a futures thing, probably. The next two are, in fact, the areas where there is going to be direct competition to any fiber service, and that is on the fixed wireless services. So most of the major wireless carriers now have already announced that they're going to be doing some type of fixed wireless. What fixed wireless means is that the subscribers get a box that replaces their Comcast box.
Yeah.
And receives essentially the same services through that.
If you'd like me to comment, I need to do so right now because I got to jump.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
Two comments. So this is very interesting, and I think we all love it, but this really is going to belong in that new committee. It's a little outside of our scope, except for the thing that we've talked about before, which is the 5G fixed base wireless displacing the cable, which would in turn affect our franchise fee. So that's something that is relevant to us, I think. But the technology of how broadband services get delivered to houses remotely and other ways to sidestep the fiber plant is perhaps a little beyond our scope, but interesting, but beyond our scope.
Okay, good.
Well,
thank you, Scott.
And I've highlighted that.
Mm-hmm.
I've highlighted that, Scott, in the two yellow areas. The others are mainly to take into consideration what's happening in the.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, just for Scott's benefit, later on he can look at the video. Go ahead and continue the explanation, Vince.
Okay, the bottom two, if you can, I see you're at the bottom here. Yep. Anyway. Those refer to what's called the Internet of Things, which is being very hotly developed by a number of companies. And that's going to be the smart refrigerators, to some extent, the surveillance cameras. And for instance, in the past couple of weeks, Apple has introduced a little fob that basically is something that you can attach to your keys, attach to your wallet, attach to your dog, attach to your kids to find out where they are at any given time. And really it indicates that there are a lot of areas that are not going to be dependent on the cell carriers and their services for many of the technologies that are being used, particularly in this lower area. Now, they do involve Wi-Fi. So there is a radio that works in both directions. So for people that are concerned with radiation, these fall into that category, and particularly, if something is hanging on the neck of your dog or stuck in your pocket, that is potentially an issue. Whether that's an issue that's serious or not is something that deserves discussion even in the context of Article 41.
Okay, sounds great. All right, I'm going to stop the share moment unless there's some other questions. Okay, thank you very much for bringing that to us. I'll be able to circulate that to the entire committee after this meeting. Okay, time check, 11:01. We're doing fine. We're supposed to finish by 11:30, but we're going to be running probably early today is my guess. Let's touch very briefly on the PAC charge. This is something we're going to be talking about more on at the June meeting. It'll follow after the DTC presentation. So those will be the two things for June, will be the DTC plus taking a harder look at the PAC charge. The one suggestion I have right now is reducing the size of the committee from 7 members down to 5. If any of you have other suggestions of what should be changed, please let me know, and I'll incorporate it into the next revision that we circulate for the next meeting. If you have any changes now you want to talk about, what this committee should be doing next year that's different from what we have right now, open up the floor. The committee members, any committee members want to talk about this? We have time now.
I think the 5 makes sense. I would only ask, would it be a 5 firm that we have to achieve, or would we have a range like 5 to 7? I know that we make a lot of demands on a lot of volunteers in this town. We want to be reasonable about what our expectations are.
Well, that's a very good point. What I had envisioned was the actual charge, and I'm going to put up my copy here, talks about, here it is. It talks about having 5 citizens at large with diverse backgrounds. And my suggestion is to change that from 5 to 3.
No.
So the membership would still be 1 citizen with experience in communication media, 1 representative designated by the school committee, 3 citizens at large with diverse backgrounds that have an interest in or experience with communications, media, and information services, and 1 ex officio non-voting member designated by the Carlisle Board of Selectmen. Right now, it's no change except changing from 5 down to 3. So the total membership would be 5, quorum would be 3. We would still have a school committee representative. And I don't know, Cord, if that would be you or if it'd be somebody else, but I'm still thinking that it would be a good idea to have a designated school committee because that's where the studio is located.
And each year we appoint our liaison and community reps. So this year that will happen in probably late June.
That sounds good. And it could rotate as the school committee decides.
Correct.
Now, Carol, you're with the Council on Aging. I have a question for Carol, and I've approached you indirectly, and I'm going to do it directly. Do you think it's a good idea to have a Council on Aging representative as one of the 3 members? Because we could switch this to, say, a representative from the designated by the Council on Aging. What do you think, Carol?
It
doesn't have to be you necessarily, but
yes, I know. I'm not sure at this stage. A majority of the people that are supported by the Council on Aging in this town are computer literate and know how to look at things and watch TV and what have you. But whether they would be a contributing member of this committee type of thing, I don't know. I could ask and see what the committee thinks. Yeah.
I would appreciate that because
so meaning a voting member as well as
a voting member. You'd be we could change that to 1 representative designated by the school committee, 1 representative designated by the Concord Council on Aging, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how that would work out, but still have the total membership of 5 voting members.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Carlin, what does it do to your citizens at large? That
it reduces the number.
2?
Correct. It would be 2 citizens at large, 1 Council on Aging, 1 school committee, and then 1 with experience in communication media. Ruth, you're making funny faces. What do you think?
Yep. But through nods and twitches, I would say I'm very intrigued with adding that voice, but I would not like to reduce the other voices in the community. So, if we go by the suggestion, Carlin, then we should probably have somebody on the committee who's a participant, like, the Frank Greens of this world, or the
We'll get you roped
yeah.
in here
Yeah.
again, Frank. Don't worry.
But, the folks who have hands-on experience with the entity are also valuable members. Now, and right now we don't do that, but if we're adding an additional, if we are redefining at large, then I would think we need to keep that fairly open to the whole community. I mean, we could have videographers and producers and all kinds of people who are over the age of 60.
Okay. All right. Maybe
So,
I'll backtrack on that. No, I think I'll backtrack on that, Carol. You don't need to ask. But
Okay.
I do want you to know, and I would like the message I'd like you to convey to the Council on Aging is that your voice, whether you're a voting member or not, will always be heard.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think it's a very valuable voice. And if it didn't affect our numbers, I would jump right in. If it would encourage Carlin to leave us at 7, adding,
Okay. I'm happy to leave it at 7, but you know what, Ruth? You've told me you're not going to re-up, which means we have an open spot. We've had 2 vacancies for well over 6 months already. We could have 3 vacancies. We need folks. That was the motivation for me suggesting we reduce from 7 to 5.
I think we have to start whispering in Terry's ear. Terry, we need volunteers.
And Matt as well.
And Matt, yes.
Okay, Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mark.
Who's the appointing authority for this committee? I just don't know.
It's the select board.
Okay.
The select board.
And hey, Terry.
I hear you. I will announce it.
You're not our official liaison. It's not supposed to be your job, but I would appreciate that. We're going to be down. I think I am re-upped. Was I appointed again? I did at the last select board meeting. The last select board meeting. I think I was one of the people that was re-upped for another 3-year term. So my term is up, but it's Ruth's position that we're trying to fill, plus the 2 that are still open. So we do need some folks. So if you folks know someone, we've got that.
Carlin, you were re-upped.
Yay! Okay, I had to leave the select board meeting early before that was up. All right, I'm stuck. You're stuck with me for another 3 years, guys. Okay, so that's what it is. And if anybody here on this call is interested in being one of the voting members, please fill out the green card online. If you want some help from me, let me know, and I'll walk you through the process. Okay.
Carlin, is there any special expertise that you're looking for to, like, with the license renewal coming up, or anything else?
No. What I'm looking for is citizens at large with an interest in or experience in communications, media, information services. If you're interested in watching TV, if you're interested in how this committee operates, if you're interested in watching videos that you like, that's what we need. It's the interest part. Ruth?
Okay.
This interest as well.
Interest in a pen, yes.
Yes, making use of that pen monthly.
That's true. Someone has to take the minutes. That will be fun. Okay, so yes, that's where we are at this point. Other discussions about the charge? I'm going to leave this for now, unless there's something else. Okay, let's open it up to any other liaison comments. Carol and Court, and then after that we'll do public comments. Carol, do you have anything from Council on Aging?
The council in their May newsletter advertised pretty prominently the MMN station and put a link to the TV guide that's online, rather than just giving. What they did in the past was they'd say that there was a program coming up on the TV channel, but now they just gave a pointer to the online TV guide. Last meeting, Phil mentioned something about a 3-day guide that was put together. I've tried to find that, but I don't know where that is or what you were talking about. The only thing I found is the regular TV guide that's online.
No, if you have like the TV on, and in between programs, there's the community bulletin board. When that community bulletin board goes around, it'll have like there's something on COVID right there. But as the different items flip through, which are about 30 seconds approximately, you will see there will be 3 different cards that will come up: pink, yellow, and light, light pink, light yellow, light blue. And they are the schedule of what is programmed in for the next approximately 3 days.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's basically it. I will mention, actually, what I think I'd like to do is mention to have them put into our bulletin, the pointer to the YouTube library that the Minuteman has, because I don't know how many people really know about that.
I think that's a great idea.
So,
If you need help with that, let me know. Otherwise, communicate with Phil on getting it properly cited. And thank you very much. Give up our appreciation to the Council on Aging for making that information available, because that's pushing it out to the folks out there.
right.
Good. Okay, Court, do you have any updates regarding school?
No, I don't, but I would like 60 seconds to acknowledge Phil for a town-related activity.
Fire away.
The Concord Nanai Sister City group went to Phil a couple of weeks ago and asked for the staff's help, Phil notably, to put together a video greeting to our colleagues in Nanai, Japan, as a way of trying to connect in the absence of the usual visitations to and from Nanai because of the pandemic. Phil jumped into action, as did some volunteer videographers. And Phil, I want to thank you for your work. You put it together very fast, and yet the result was superb. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Court. That's very kind of you to say. Thank you very much.
And that video is one of the videos, Carol, that's posted on the YouTube webpage that you can watch. It is it's very well done. Thank you, Court. Anything else, Court?
No, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, public comment time. Any public comments? David, go ahead, David Allen.
Thanks. David Allen, Eastbridge Road, of course. Let me just say it out loud. I'm shocked to hear about a roughly $100,000 increase in the budget. That's about a quarter, even a third. And for goodness sake, Phil doesn't even know what it is. What gives here? As we are all aware, we have a kitty handed down to us from the past. Let me use the word. We don't need to squander it. Let's at least know what this is about. And apparently it's not some new station or something like that. Supplies, which gets us to observations previously, a couple of times now from me specifically, that if we're upgrading servers and the like, we really need to be looking at putting this stuff in the cloud and not managing our own servers. We don't have the personnel, we don't have the expertise, and the cloud does such a fabulous job of this sort of thing. We very much need not be spending money on that sort of thing, but that doesn't really answer the question. What in the heck is going on here? A sudden huge bump in the budget. Maybe it's justified, but the only way it can be justified is with transparency and accountability. Let's hope that that happens.
Sounds good. And I agree that would be an area for inquiry during the enterprise hearing. Okay, other public comments. Anybody else wants to? Lois Suarez, go ahead. And Lois, give us your address too, please.
Lois Suarez, 34 Everett Street, apartment 10B. When you were talking about looking for people for your team, your committee, what about some public service announcements for your committee members? Because perhaps some of the people that are watching your product would be interested in working with your product.
Oh, I like that idea. So public service announcement as in what?
You know, you have government, you have your PEG access 3 channels,
Okay.
and just thought that, you know, and you have the YouTube somewhere tag along, or do it like a commercial in the middle.
Well, that's kind of what we're trying to do with this plaque and the press release that we're going to be doing. It will be advertising the committee and the committee's work, as well as honoring the people who are doing it.
But that doesesn't ask. It's a
No, it
sales
doesn't.
job. It's a
No, it
sales
doesn't.
job. Ask for the sale. Ask for the appointment, and tell them where to go. You know, if they need to fill out the green card or talk to somebody in the select board, whatever the pieces are.
Got it. Ruth, do you have an observation?
Give them an idea. I mean, you could do it for any of the town committees, actually.
Sure.
They're Terry. That's to Terry.
Ruth?
I commend this. This is a modern version of a letter to the editor. And it's not unusual for committees to write a letter saying, we've done this year. We need volunteers. Would you like to step up and help? And Lois has brought us into the 21st century. Let's do it in the way. And maybe we're the only one, or maybe other committees will want to tag along with us. But I think it's perfect.
Okay. Nancy Pierce, member of the journalism crew. Yeah. What do you think about this approach?
Of recruiting committee?
Yeah, with the using a PSA, essentially.
I couldn't really say. I know you're not looking for people in Carlisle. I just don't know how many people in Carlisle are watching the channel, so I'm not certain that would really get you anybody.
Okay, all right.
As a committee member, I just want to say one quick thing before you end about the Concord School Committee, but that can wait, and I'll take
Nancy, go ahead and take your time now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, just very quickly. I heard at one point Court said something about the Concord schools and the Carlisle schools and the Concord Carlisle School Committee. I think it's probably fine. I don't really think that there's been much participation by the Carlisle schools as an entity in anything that Minuteman Media Network has done, at least this year, although I may be wrong because I don't really follow that. So not that it really makes any difference, but I think it might be a little absurd to list the Carlisle schools on your appreciation list. It is a bone of contention for some people on the Carlisle School Committee that there is no coverage of the meetings. So not that they would ever find out that their name was on a plaque, but I just wanted to mention it. Good.
They'll find out. This is public. Yeah, okay. Court Booth, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you very much, Nancy. I think that the plaque, my suggestion was that it read Concord /Concord -Carlisle.
Yeah.
Schools,
okay.
Which
That's
is the
fine.
typical.
I just wanted to make sure that was what it was.
But to your point, I would be, I'm eager to speak with my regional co-chair, Sarah Wilson. I'm the chair of the Concord side. She's the chair of the Concord Carlisle side, and she's a Carlisle resident. Your Carlisle chair is Christine Lear. I think it'd be wise for me, if I have the nod of this group, to reach out to Sarah and to Christine to simply say, we want you to know that the resource NMN can be used more fully if you make some moves, NNM can make some moves as well, because I think they certainly could. Does that sound reasonable, Carlin?
Yes, consider yourself nodded at, and Phil, please coordinate with Court and Carlisle as appropriate, okay?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, last year, it was the middle school had reached out to us for their moving on ceremony, which was not done on school property. They did ask us to cover that. And I know there have been a few things here and there, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there's not a lot. I think the Carlisle School Committee meetings are I don't know, but in terms of like getting Carlisle town meetings, they're certainly welcome, especially now in this world of Zoom that we live in. The only thing we get on a regular basis is a select board meeting. So is that they don't know that they can send the stuff over to us?
So it's been an issue in the past of having to have a volunteer equipment. I don't want to go into all of it because I don't even really understand it. I just know that it's been a bone of contention, and one of the reasons, one of the sort of background difficulties about Carlisle's use of the station. And I don't go into it. It's a whole big thing, but
no, that's certainly understandable. And
the school, the thing is that the school committee meetings may be the public meetings that are of interest to people in Carlisle, and much less, the selectmen, yes. And part of the issue has been that there was an expectation when the new school was built that CCTV equipment was going to be installed there so that many meetings could be televised, and it didn't happen for.
Yeah, no, there's a whole thing about equipment and who owns what, and that is something that keeps coming up, especially with the right now as Carlisle is going through their process, because there's equipment that is owned again by the town of Carlisle as well as what's owned by now Minuteman Media. So yeah, these it's an interesting world.
Yeah,
it would require a lot of unraveling over many years to determine ownership of various pieces of capital investment equipment. Some of which is rendered moot by some of this stuff becoming obsolete or replaced over the years. The other thing Nancy, thanks to what you're saying, I'll say another thing that was in my mind, and that is there was a time when we had a very active person in the ranks of the Carlisle Public Schools faculty with whom we were connecting around cable and videography and production. And so when I talk to Christine, I'll ask her to reach through the superintendent to see if we do have that internal champion, as I call it, within the ranks of Carlisle employees who should be more informed and be connected up with Phil so that they know possibilities. They know the kind of synergy that could happen if they were to tap into it. So I'll see what I can learn there too.
And just to restate the obvious, because we're going through this franchising thing, we had those focus groups that I wrote about a couple weeks ago. Between now and maybe June it would be a really good time to try to get a little specific and detailed about what would be required and what the town might ask for, and also for somebody to try to generate a groundswell of opinion. There's been very little interest so far in the town about the whole process, but this is a good time to strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah, I know. In fact, Tim Goddard just sent out another reminder, Carlisle Community Cable Survey, which I just got a few moments ago. So I know that is one area that, he's been reaching out to. And, in terms of us reaching out to people in the community, I wish I had a bigger mailing list, which it's very, very limited.
This is historical. It's not necessarily your responsibility.
I think you'll find it common, not just in Carlisle, but it will happen in Concord, that you won't get a lot of public participation in the franchise renewal process because people take us for granted.
But I think that it would be great to have some kind of data that indicates some sort of public interest, so that the selectmen have a basis for making school committee equipment or whatever part of their negotiations with Comcast when the time comes.
Right. Good point. Okay. Other public observations? Mark Howell, go ahead, Mark.
So I think that it's very important to understand what's going on with Carlisle and the franchise agreement. The last time the franchise agreement was negotiated in Concord, it was quite clear from the attorney who was advising us that, there was going to be pressure and changes, and being able to understand what our internal capabilities were, and then negotiating for, sort of different outcomes in terms of, letting Comcast off the hook specifically on iNet and getting money in exchange for that was, quite beneficial to Concord. I think that it's important for this committee to be preparing strategically for the fact that during the next set of negotiations, Comcast will be doing everything they can to try to get out from under the regular payments that they're making, and decline those payments. And so the mission of PEG access is a very important mission, and how that mission begins to be potentially budgeted by the town entities and the school entities in order to keep it going, as well as moving those platforms potentially away from cable TV into into YouTube channels and online streaming, and taking advantage of our fiber network, are all really important topics to dive into for this committee and jointly with Carlisle. Some of you may be aware, but some of you may not be aware that CMLP actually extended the fiber network to connect to Carlisle's internal municipal fiber network last fall in support of the public safety radio networks, and that permits the same technologies that are being used to interconnect the Concord town buildings, potentially to interconnect the Carlisle town buildings with the PEG Access Studio, and take advantage of some of the very same things. And so I would encourage some development and some joint planning in that area, and some awareness in there if they're not doing that. And the last comment I'll make is on Article 41. Obviously, I'm supportive of it. I think that it's an important element of this committee that the appointing authority is in fact the select board, and I'll be suggesting to the petitioner of Article 41 that I think that it's also important that the select board be the appointing authority for any committee that's created under Article 41, asking the town manager to appoint that committee when the goal of that committee is actually to define business objectives and strategies for an important utility service for the town, is basically saying, whatever you plan to do from a business perspective is going to be just fine with us, because strong advocates for expansion, or strong advocates for universal access, or really citizen voices will to some extent be muted by putting that in the hands of the staff, rather than putting it in the hands of the elected officials that represent our citizenry. So I would consider that, recommending that to this committee in terms of how you express support for Article 41, because I was just rereading it while the meeting was going on, and noting that it really does seem to be focused on the town manager. And I suspect that was because the petitioner probably sought advice from the light plant director when they were crafting it. And of course, the light plant director would much rather have the town manager be involved in that. One of the challenges with the light board itself is that it's appointed by the town manager, and therefore those of you who remember the Energy Futures Task Force know that board was considerably more out in front of the light board. And I think it has a lot to do with who appoints the boards for these tasks. So I'll just leave you with that comment.
Thank you, Mark.
very
Appreciate
much.
it. Thank you.
My address, 668 in Ersnack Hill Road, just because I know I think I said it earlier, but.
You did.
Okay.
You've stayed in Ruth's good graces. Frank, you've been very quiet this entire time. Was there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, I noticed that that MMN has a Facebook page, and I thought that would be a good place to advertise their shows and things that are coming up. For instance, the last entry there is in December. So, but you could put a link to the YouTube and use that as a way of advertising your, if they built up that page to be something that people actually went to. So.
Absolutely. I'd love to like it. So yeah, Phil, there's another area for social media.
Yep.
Okay, folks, it is 11:31. I'm inclined to complete this meeting, but to do so, I will need a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. And let's do a roll call. Carlin Reed says yes, adjourn. Ruth Flower,
Yes.
Vince Carlson,
Yes.
and Court Booth.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you, folks. Thank you all very much for attending. Appreciate that, and have a good day. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right.